Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Work Matters, a podcast of the Chapel Hill Bible Church, where we spend time with members of our congregation exploring the work that they are doing and how they are partnering with God in that work to bring a transformation to our world, to bring the gospel, to bring the kingdom to bear in our world. And today, for this edition, we have the one, the only, the great Amy Huffman. Amy, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here with us. It's great to see you. You're muted. I don't know if you realize that. I know you've got company there at your house.
Just a few people.
Yeah. Well, Amy, I know you've been at the Bible Church since 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd love for you to share with us a little bit of your background. I know you grew up in Boone. How did you end up, how did you end up coming to faith in Christ? And how did you end up at the Bible Church?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me, Roddy. It's been fun to listen to you do these, and I've secretly wanted to be on it for a long time. So I'm excited to be here. And it's good to see you. Yeah, so I grew up in Boone, born and raised. And for those of you from outside the state, that's in Western North Carolina, the most beautiful part of the state. I grew up in a Christian home. I have 3 siblings, and we went to a church that's actually kind of similar to the Bible Church there. It's a non-denominational church called Alliance Bible Fellowship. And so grew up in that church, came to faith at a young age, 7, 8, was baptized, walked with the Lord for a good part of my youth. In high school and college, I definitely wandered, and I was more interested in what Amy wanted to do than what God wanted Amy to do, or what God was seeking for my life. And so around, I came to the Triangle in 2003 for undergrad at UNC. And then I stayed in the area, and then a couple of years later went back for grad school in 2010 to 2012. I had my son Grayson in 2010, and am a single mom. So I've been a single mom pretty much since I had him. So 10 years now. And around when I was an undergrad, when my mom would come to visit me at school, and she would be like, Amy, let's go to church on Sundays when she was here for the weekend. And she looked up a church and dragged me to it. And that was the Bible Church. And so when I graduated grad school in 2012, most of my friends had left the area. I needed friends. I also needed friends with kids because I had a 2-year-old at the time. And I was like, well, I haven't been to church in a while. Maybe I should give that a shot. And when I started to think about what church to go to, I just thought, well, let me go to this one I know. And so I came to the Bible Church. And little did I know that me wanting friends was God's way of drawing me back to Him.
Yeah.
And being like, no. I mean, friends are good, and community is good, and it sharpens us, and it's important. And but what I really needed was Him. And so I've been there ever since, and it's been I can't say enough about the Bible Church and the role it's had in my life, and discipling me and shepherding me and just pointing me to what is good and true and beautiful in the world. So it's been a really beautiful 8 years there.
That's awesome, Amy. It's interesting how your story and my story, one point of similarity is that God used my need for friendship and my desire for that in drawing me to Himself. So when I moved from Brazil to Rio de Janeiro, city of about 11 million people, to a town of about 30,000 in Northeast Tennessee. So I wasn't far from Boone. I was in Bristol, Tennessee. Not that
far at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember getting there and not knowing a single person. I was probably like the only foreign kid in town. So I was an anomaly and people didn't know what to do with me. Uh, and I just had this deep, deep longing and desire to be loved and to be known and to have friends.
Mm-hmm.
And by God's grace, the people who reached out to me and offered me that were Christians. And I came to faith as a result of their friendship. God used that. So really cool to hear how God used kind of that same longing and yearning in you to bring you to the Bible church community. And I think that just can't be overstated. And I think especially in COVID season right now, people are starving for that.
Yeah.
And,
I
and I
think
think
so.
for us as a church to be really good friends to people, and just to dream and imagine what God could do through that, I think is really great.
Yeah.
So you brought up the fact that you're a single mom,
Mm-hmm.
Jason, 10 years old, sweet guy. Miss seeing him around at church.
Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah. The kids they have their moments, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's always great when I see him. So, Amy, this is a really unique season. I imagine being a single mom already has lots of challenges, but
Mm-hmm.
now you work full time, and Grayson is doing school from home, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Full time.
Can you give us a little bit of a glimpse of what that's been like for you guys?
So yeah, I work full time. And we came home from work. We were sent home in March, and it's indefinite at this point. So I'm home full time. I've been in the office once since March to get a new computer. And Grayson was sent home in March. He is a student in Durham Public Schools. And the first several months were really rough. He is someone who needs structure, and he needs a teacher. Even if I could homeschool, could stay home and homeschool, I couldn't with him. It just wouldn't, his personality, that's not how he learns. He needs an outside person from me teaching. And it was pretty rough. I at one point broke down and just said, I don't know how I'm going to do this and that full time. I just don't know. By God's grace, we got through the spring. And literally, I think it was only by God's grace. Summer was okay. Things slowed down. And then the fall has been going really well in terms of school. And he's been staying on top of everything. Work is, it's all over the place. We can talk about that later. But he's been staying on top of things, and for the most part, but I think the monotony of it, is starting to wear on him, and he's gotten a little bit behind. So just having to balance trying to help him with staying on top of things while also getting done my deliverables and what I'm responsible for. Is tough. I mean, that's always been tough. This is not a new thing. It's always been tough to balance both of those things. Coming home after a long day, I used to, my office is still in Raleigh. I just don't go there anymore. So I commuted, which some days was 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. Some days that was an hour there, an hour back. And so coming home after that, after maybe basketball, and then trying to help him with homework after cooking dinner, it's always been a balance. It's just a different kind of balance now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been up and down for sure. But there's been some beautiful parts of it too. We get more time together. We got a COVID dog. And so my commute now is walking the dog instead of driving, which is, after 8 years of commuting to Raleigh, is a nice change of pace, to be honest. And there's some beautiful things in there too.
What's your dog's name?
His name's Finn.
Finn. Okay.
Yeah. Grayson named him.
We are also getting a COVID dog.
I heard. That's so exciting. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Every bit of it.
Yeah, I'm sure. We're looking forward to it. Well, Amy, thanks for giving us a glimpse of that. I know this has been such a challenging season for everyone, and everyone has unique experiences of challenges. Every household is different, every child is different. They have different needs. And it's been really interesting just to hear from other parents. Some things are going okay. For some, things are going not well at all. We kind of run the whole width of the spectrum there. So your work, I'm gonna read out your job title here as you shared with me. And if you are listening to this and you have a job title that is longer than this, I want to hear from you. So here is Amy's title. She is the Digital Inclusion and Policy Manager at Broadband Infrastructure Office in the North Carolina Department of Information
Technology.
Yeah, I left out of information technology. I thought I was done. Ran out of breath there.
I know.
So
every time.
Yeah. So digital inclusion. Does your card actually say that? Your business card?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. If I had one, I'd show it to you right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, this got to be like a scroll that you unveil for people, right?
It's like 5 lines.
Yeah.
It just keeps going.
That's fantastic. So digital inclusion and policy manager. I imagine that this is a season with COVID, with everyone being at home and people needing access to the internet. That it really brings maybe heightens the necessity of the work that you do. So I'd love to hear. You said you've been doing this kind of work for 8 years. I know you shifted from the Chamber of Commerce, right, to a different department now. But tell us, what does that mean? Digital inclusion and policy manager. What do you do?
The way I summarize it is that I work to close the digital divide in North Carolina. And the digital divide is basically the gap between those who have access to the internet and the technology like we're using right now, computers, and the skills to use it, and those who don't. And so that's basically how I summarize it. And there's obviously a lot that goes into that, but That's kind of my elevator speech.
Okay. And you do this for the entire state?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. So we're a state agency, our office is within a state agency, and so in my role, I serve the whole state.
So give us a picture of what the state of digital access and skill is like in the state right now.
The truth is, I don't know.
Okay.
Because there's been a lot of changes in the wake of COVID that we don't have data for yet, right? So I can tell you what it was like before COVID, and in about 6 months might be able to say 18 months maybe. The data lags. It's kind of hard. So if it's okay, I'll back up just a little bit. So in our office, we work, it's our vision that every North Carolinian would have access to affordable high-speed broadband anywhere at any time. And historically, the broadband world has been really focused on making sure people have that actual access, right? So making sure they have the literal pipes and wires that deliver broadband to a person's home. And in the rural areas of North Carolina and the rural areas of other states, that's a big problem. There's people that literally don't have that to their home. If they wanted to purchase that, they couldn't because they don't have it. The internet service providers can't get a return on investment, so don't go there. That's a challenge in North Carolina for about 5% of our households.
Okay.
Which is still like 200,000 or no, like 400,000 households. I mean, that's still a lot of people, right? Close to 500,000 people when you count the people. That's too many, right? One person is too many, but that's too many. And it's a big challenge, and most of our office works on closing that. I work on closing the other side of broadband, which we call broadband adoption. So there's a lot of people who have access to it, but that still don't subscribe to it, right? Okay. And so there's multiple reasons for that, but the main reason is cost. it's too expensive and people can't afford it. And or they can't afford a computer. And so if you can't afford a computer, you're not going, or don't want a computer, or your computer breaks, you're not going to pay for the internet, right? And then the other big reason is skills, not having the skills, being overwhelmed by the computer, and it just makes you not want to subscribe to the internet, right? So that's what I work on. So I work on those things, and about 62.6% of North Carolina households subscribe to the internet at a speed that we define as broadband. So that's almost 40% of the state that doesn't, right? So that's a big gap.
Okay.
And that gap, so while the access gap impacts mostly the rural areas, there are some areas in the triangle it impacts. So rural Orange County, for instance, there's a lot of gaps there. Northern Durham, there's some gaps there. Chatham County has some issues in terms of access. But in general, like, you probably have 4 providers you could purchase from right now. In general, the access gap in the urban areas isn't a challenge, but broadband adoption is. And so broadband adoption is something that impacts the whole state. So I work both with urban areas and rural areas across the state to try and close that.
Okay. So I think most of us have a general understanding of why it's important to have access. But you, I'm sure, have a more robust understanding, a more articulate understanding of what that is. So, like, what drives you guys to do this? What is the importance, the significance of people having access?
So before COVID, I ran around the state talking to people. I traveled like almost like 50 counties last year or something, talking with county managers, county commissioners, economic developers, people from across the state, trying to explain to them why digital inclusion, which is what I work in, that broadband adoption piece, is important, why they should focus on that and access at the same time. Because if the access is just available to your community, then it doesn't actually make a difference if people aren't subscribing to it, right? Which makes logical sense, but there's actually been research that shows like the local economy only is benefited if people subscribe to it. So I ran around the state trying to tell people all the reasons why this was important. So it's important to your economy. It's important for healthcare. It's important for education. It's important for your public safety. It's important for your government relations, like you as a government communicating with your citizen. And I felt a little bit like Chicken Little, like,
wow,
here, this is important. It's going to have these impacts sometime in the future, right? Like, our children won't be set up to thrive. Our children won't flourish and contribute to society in the way that they could if this gap isn't closed now, right? And then the sky fell, like, really, really hard in February and March, and the impacts that we were predicting and we've been seeing for a long time are suddenly laid completely bare, right? And everyone sees them, and they're not only impacts that will change, will inhibit one select population in the future, they're going to inhibit so many people. So that's in large part, I did this work before because I could foresee a future if we don't fix this problem, too many people will not be flourishing, right? And I want them to have that. I want them to be able to access their doctor. I want them to be able to engage in their homework from, a kid to be able to engage with their homework from home. Now I think I do this work. It is the same reason, but it feels more urgent. It is a problem, I believe, that can be solved too. It is a solvable problem. So it's something that if we have enough leadership and political will and ingenuity and real dedication to, that we can, if we can't solve it completely, we can really minimize it. So I think that's another reason why I enjoy this work and continue to do it.
That's fantastic. I love your Chicken Little reference there. Also, I want to focus on a word that you used a few times now, flourish. That is a word that is not unique to the Christian vocabulary, but I do think that is a word that we should own with more gravitas than other people can, because of our theology, because of the cultural mandate in Genesis chapter 1, right? That we are created to create, and we're created to partner with God with the raw materials that He has given us, and out of that we create new things, and we are imaging God through our work. I know you were part of Triangle Fellows, very first cohort, and here's some product placement for everyone. Triangle Fellows is a fantastic program that is going to help you grow in your integration of your faith into your work. And Amy, I think it was it you who shared the story of not particularly enjoying going to the office, and then tell us a little bit about that transformation.
Oh man. Well, first, if you don't know what Triangle Fellows is, please talk to Roddy or Kyle and learn about it, or me. I'd love to talk to you about it. It was such an impactful program in my life, and it really changed the way I see everything. I did Triangle Fellows in 2017. I had been in my role, some iteration of my role since 2012. I think the real thing, Roddy, was that I was looking to the wrong places. So my boss, my colleagues, my work, to tell me who I was, to tell me I mattered, to provide love for, make me feel loved, make me feel wanted, make me feel important. And there were some challenges. I definitely had a lot of challenges. My work wasn't easy. I was just at that stage around that time, moving towards the digital inclusion space. I was a researcher for a long time, and I still lead our research because we never hired anyone else. But I was doing mostly research. I wasn't really enjoying it. I wanted to do more of the stuff I'm doing now. I wasn't really being let to do that, or I was being let to do that without a title change and without pay, and those things that matter.
Yeah.
But they're not everything. And I had some challenging relationships with my colleagues, and there were just challenges. Red tape, bureaucracy, working in government's not always easy. But the real thing that needed changing wasn't my situation, wasn't my circumstances, wasn't my pay, wasn't my title. Again, all those things are important, but they aren't ultimate. It was me. It was my heart. I needed to see my colleagues as image bearers. I needed to see the impact my work had, right? I knew it was important. I've always wanted to be a public servant. I've always wanted to work for government, and I've always seen the need for that. But I needed to see that it was God's, not mine. I needed to see a lot of things that I just didn't and was blind to in a lot of ways. And then most importantly, I needed to see that I was God's beloved, no matter what challenges I faced at work, right? If my boss liked or didn't like my work, or told me he liked my work or didn't like my work, that wasn't what I ultimately needed, right? I needed just to know and dwell and live in the fact that I was God's beloved, or I am God's beloved, not was, still am. And so I just needed a heart change. And so the Triangle Fellows help propel that in me in a way that I don't know would have happened otherwise in that way and in that time frame. I think it would have happened over time and maybe a longer period of time. And just helped me to change my heart and the way I saw my colleagues, the way I saw my work, and the way I began to more holistically submit it all to the Lord, right? So all of that, it's funny when you stop being bitter and resentful towards your colleagues, how much more you enjoy them. How much more you enjoy going into the office, and then how much less little things like not having the title you want matters to you, and then just how much more you enjoy your work. Which then freed me up to, when I'm not worrying about all those things anymore, it freed me up to dream bigger, to dream projects and collaborations and all sorts of things that I don't know that I would have seen otherwise. And to look for ways to bring about reconciliation in my world that's closing the digital divide, right? So to bring about that reconciliation in a way that I just think I would have been too focused on these little things and missed the bigger picture, right? So then my job becomes more enjoyable because it's when you're cultivating with the Lord the glory that He has already like strewn about His creation, and government being one area, that it's there's real beauty in it, even in the midst of the darkness, even in the midst of the challenges.
That's awesome. I love that story. And I love how you keep talking about heart change. My mind keeps going to Psalm 51 and David's prayer of repentance. Creating me a clean heart. And that's what we need. We focus so much on just kind of like external things. And I love again that you said it's not that these things matter, but they're not ultimate. And ultimately, the problem wasn't those things. Ultimately, the problem was with my heart. I love that. And at the same time, you hold it in tension with the fact that you're actually trying to address systems and structures, right? So you're cognizant of both of those things as being really important. And when we talk about human flourishing, it's about having proper hearts and dispositions, ultimately towards God and towards neighbor. And then also having the right systems and structures that allow for flourishing to take place. So it's really cool to see that, with Triangle Fellows and the work that you do, you're bringing those things, both of those things to bear on your work.
Yeah, and I need to also say this is a continual process, right? It's not one and done.
Right.
It wasn't after 2018 I suddenly figured everything out and I'm never have to repent. I never have to, remind myself that this is God's work. No, that's a daily thing.
Yeah.
I just feel like, just to speak to Triangle Fellows again, I feel like it gave me the tools to do that. And I can, when I am getting super frustrated, or there's so many politics right now, and that's really tough to deal with. Politics in my work, I know there's big P politics, but politics in our work that are hard, really hard and challenging. I feel like what I learned in Triangle Fellows and continue to learn at the Bible Church and through community has set me up to be able to identify those things for what they are and quicker, and then also turn to the Lord or submit those things to the Lord sooner than maybe I would have before.
Yeah, that's awesome. Amy, maybe one last question. And this is kind of a big question. Maybe you see this really clearly, and I think this is part of that continual process for all of us. Um, where where do you see God at work in your work?
So I think part of my frustration back, several years ago was that we didn't really work as a team. We were pretty siloed. We didn't have great relationships. We each, I think, had good individual relationships with like my boss, but not really. We didn't work collectively well. And I'd say over the past 2 years, those relationships have grown and built, and we're working a lot better together. And then even amidst COVID, I found I miss them. Like I miss seeing my colleagues. And it's like, wow, I never thought I'd miss seeing these people every day. And I talk to them more than ever before. And I feel even though we haven't literally seen each other in I don't know what month this is, whatever month this is, 8 months, 9 months, whatever. It's a blur now. We almost work better together now than we ever have before. So in that way, that is, and we've had some tough stuff happen in the past couple of weeks, and I've been able to be there for my colleagues, and they've been able to share with me, like, this has been really, really awful. And I've been able to say, I'm sorry. And one colleague, I'm able to say, I'm praying for you right now. So that's been really beautiful. And seeing God at work in that. God does great work through relationships. I do think, even though I felt like Chicken Little, the light that has been shown, whatever verb that is, however you say that, on the digital divide through this, is necessary. It was necessary before COVID. And I think you can't solve a problem unless people don't know about it. And it's suddenly caused people to care about it in a way that they didn't before. And because of it, we have seen financial investments that wouldn't have been there but for COVID. We've seen leadership come to the table, maybe not as much as I'd like, but we've seen people who should have been invested in this work all along come and be invested in this work in a way that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. And so it's given me hope that this is, I might not be working on this 15 years from now. Maybe it's more like 10, or, I think that there's hope that we can bring about real change, because I think, through the Lord's providence, he's shown people that this is something that we should care about.
Yeah. As I think about this too, Amy, I'm in my mind, I'm kind of thinking back through the history of modern Protestant missions, which really began really with William Carey around 1792. And there's been like three main periods of Protestant mission, and they have kind of unique things about them. Mm-hmm. And one of the unique things about the era that we are in is actually the use of technology. And so even a lot of mission agencies have a technological name associated with it, like Mission Aviation Fellowship, for example, right? It's talking about how they're going to do it, what the tool is. And, one of internet access and inclusion is such an amazing tool for the gospel to go forth. We were doing the perspectives class back in the spring, and when we had to shut down, we were easily able to pivot and switch over to an online platform. And we were able to continue to discuss these things and to learn together. And I've heard so many stories from mission partners who were able to continue to access. One of our partners is translating scripture into a certain language, and he is able to send these scripture lessons via WhatsApp to a remote
Mm-hmm.
island in Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
It's just incredible. So in thinking about that holistic picture of flourishing access to medicine, access to information, to education, and this just opens so many doors for the gospel too. So
Oh,
um,
so many.
yeah, I'm really thankful for the work that you do. I love having internet access at home. Our life is certainly, I think, better. It brings in some challenges, of course, as
Of
well,
course.
but
Yeah.
it's a wonderful tool, and I think it's fantastic that you're engaged in that work.
Thank you. And in the new heavens and the new earth, we won't need the internet. We'll just be able to communicate directly and perfectly with God and our each other.
It
And
definitely won't be dial up or drop signal.
oh no. um, but that is that also gives me hope, right?
Yeah,
Knowing that that's coming.
yeah. Well, Amy, Digital Inclusion and Policy Manager, Broadband Infrastructure Office in North Carolina Department of Information Technology. It's been a pleasure getting to hang out with you and getting to hear your heart. Thanks for the work that you do. Pray God's blessing over that. Thanks for being a faithful part of our church. And thanks for the great plug for Triangle Fellows as well. I think you're a great walking billboard of the impact that the program can have, frankly. And you know this, Katie, my wife went through this as well, and she also has absolutely loved it. So again, if you're watching this, as Amy said, if you're interested in learning more about Triangle Fellows, feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'd be happy to tell you a little bit more about this program. It really can be transformative for you. It can turn your work into, a phrase that's being thrown out there now, into workship. Like, how could you worship God through your work? And Triangle Fellows can be a great tool to help you with that. So, Amy, again, thanks for joining us. Thank you, friends, for watching this, and God bless you.